Good evening and welcome to Carlin tonight. So while much of the press was staring slack-jawed at a spectacle, once again dazzled by smoke, military graphics, and the usual made-for-television presidential theater, Donald Trump gave the game away in public. Not privately, not in some leaked memo, not whispered to donors over steak dinner in Palm Beach. Publicly, he told you exactly what this is about. In the middle of the night, because of course it was in the middle of the night, Donald Trump announces military action involving Iran. Fine, that alone is grave enough. That alone should command the full attention of a serious country. War, or the threat of war, is not a branding exercise. It is not a campaign rollout. It is not a dopamine hit for political degenerates who treat geopolitics like fantasy football. It is life and death. It is blood and fire. It is what happens when governments decide that young men will be turned into headlines and rubble. But then, almost immediately, he connects Iran to the election, to 2020, to 2024, to the great psychic wound from which he has never recovered. The fact that the country looked at him, heard him, watched the chaos, the lies, the filth, the narcissism, and said no. And there it is, the tell, the confession, the whole rotted mechanism exposed for anyone with functioning eyes to see. Because this was never just about Iran. This was never just about the thing. It was never just about tariffs. It was never just about immigration. Never just about crime. Never just about the border. Never just about inflation. Never just about foreign policy. Every road in Donald Trump's mind leads back to one destination only: power. More specifically, power retained through distortion, intimidation, confusion, emergency rhetoric, and the corrosion of any institution capable of removing him or restraining him. That's the story. The rest is stage dressing. And once you understand that, everything that looks chaotic suddenly becomes very simple. Very simple, in fact. The chaos is not random. It is useful. It is instrumental. It is the fog in which a weak man tries to become permanent. This is what these people do. They flood the zone with so much bullshit, so much manufactured panic, so much theatrical crisis and theater that ordinary decent people can no longer tell where the fire is coming from. They want you tired. They want you overwhelmed. They want you saying, "Oh, I don't know, maybe it's all too complicated. Ugh." No, it's not too complicated. They want control, and they think if they just scream the words national security so loudly enough, you'll eat what's for dinner and you won't ask too many questions. So shut up! That's the plan, by the way. It's not even a clever plan. It's old, ancient really, and every cheap authoritarian trick in the playbook begins the same way. Invent a threat or inflate one, and attach that threat to the leader's personal survival. Declare that normal rules no longer apply, and suggest that extraordinary times require extraordinary powers, and then wait for cowards, sycophants, hacks, and trembling careerists to line up and say, well, in perhaps light of these circumstances, maybe the president should, in fact, have broader authority than usual. No, absolutely not. The President of the United States does not get to treat elections as a personal inconvenience. He does not get to invoke foreign interference like some kind of magical spell and suddenly place himself above the constitutional order. He does not get to lose, rage, lie, sulk, fabricate, threaten, and then declare himself the victim of invisible international conspiracies every single fucking time democracy fails to flatter his ego. But that is exactly where this is going. Look at the pattern. It was China, it was Venezuela, it was Hugo Chavez, it was a dead man, which would have been funny if it were not so contemptible. Oh, it was Italy, it was the satellites, it was Germany, it was Cuba, it was whatever deranged bedtime story the movement needed that week in order to avoid the one very explanation that they can't emotionally survive. He lost because millions of Americans were sick and fucking tired of him. That truth is unbearable to them. So what do? They keep searching for a foreign villain large enough to justify domestic repression. That's the key. Not because they care so deeply about the sovereignty of the republic. Spare me. All right, these are not philosophers of constitutional self-government. These are not the heirs of Madison. These are not defenders of democracy or ordered liberty. These are political scavengers in expensive suits and heavy makeup, sniffing around for the nearest pretext to seize more power. This is what it is. And yes, the legal question still matters, right? It matters a great deal because there is no serious constitutional theory under which the president simply takes over the administration of elections because he has declared himself anxious about, foreign influence. Elections are run by the states. The machinery is local, state-based, statutory, constitutional. It's not some technicality, okay? It's not. And that's the point. It was designed that way because the founders were not retards. They understood the obvious danger of concentrating election power in the hands of a man ambitious enough to abuse it. And Donald Trump is ambitious enough to abuse it. He has already told you that. He always has. The mistake people keep making with him is that imagine, he's just bluffing, he's just pretending, until he's not. And he's actually doing the very fucking thing he said at his rallies. There you go. We all tried warning you. So, yeah. I don't want to say it, but yeah, I told you so. So the mistake people keep making with him is imagining that he is bluffing right up until the moment he acts. He's not always bluffing. Sometimes he is confessing. Sometimes the very grotesque thing that he says out loud is not a joke. He's not a troll, not an exaggeration, but an early draft of policy. He says the law is in his way because he wants to smash right through it. He says that the election was stolen because he wants permission to treat the next one like a hostage situation and negotiation. He says foreign enemies are involved because, he understands courts have traditionally been more differential when the magic words national security are uttered in a grave tone by men with flags behind them. That is how the scam works. It's not even about winning on the merits at first. It's about buying time. It's about causing enough confusion, enough fear, enough fragmentation, enough bureaucratic bullshit and legal whiplash that local officials, county clerks, party hacks, nervous judges, and obedient Republican functionaries begin doing the very work for him voluntarily. That is the real danger, by the way. It's not merely a dramatic executive order done in Washington. The danger is the tributaries, the little channels through which the poison flows outward. A governor who is eager to please, a secretary of state with the spine of a wet cardboard, a county-level election denier who sees the signal from above and decides that this is his moment to matter, a local judge in a deep red jurisdiction who decides to indulge in the madness for a few days or a few weeks just to get some hit time on Fox, a state office that turns over sensitive voter information because nobody there has the courage to say no. That is how democratic systems are degraded and destroyed, not always in one grand cinematic collapse, but in the small acts of obedience, in little humiliations, in procedural vandalism, in cheap men making themselves useful to power. And that is why people telling you to calm down, to relax, to stop being dramatic, to trust the process, are the very ones missing the point entirely. Trust is not a civic virtue when the people in charge are openly looking for ways to weaponize emergency powers against elections. Blindness is not sophistication. Denial is not balance. And pretending not to see the pattern does not make you prudent. It makes you prey. You are being told not to believe your own eyes, because if you believe your own eyes, the whole con just falls apart. And here's the deepest obscenity in all of it. They wrap this up in patriotism. They always do. Always the flag, always the anthem, always the solemn voice about threats abroad and enemies within. Always the implication that if you object, you are weak, unserious, ungrateful, insufficiently loyal. But loyalty to a country is not loyalty to a man. Loyalty to a constitution is not loyalty to a movement. Loyalty to democracy is not loyalty to whichever bloated demagogue happens to be shouting about invasion, betrayal, or national emergency on a given Tuesday. In fact, the opposite is true, because the moment someone asks you to sacrifice constitutional principles so that one insecure man can feel safe, you are no longer in the realm of patriotism at all. You are in the realm of submission, and that is exactly what they want. Submission. They want a country full of people too frightened to think, too exhausted to resist, too confused to distinguish war from propaganda, law from bluff, emergency from spectacle. They want you trained, conditioned, domesticated. They want you nodding along while all the rules are bent beyond recognition. They want you to swallow the lie first and ask for the evidence later. And they want you to accept that presidential power expands whenever Donald Trump feels like it. He feels emotionally inconvenienced? Law expands. He doesn't give a fuck. The country's going to live according to him. No sane country can live that way. And whatever else may be true, this much is also true. They are not as strong as they look. That matters. because authoritarians thrive on the appearance of inevitability. They want every opponent demoralized in advance. They want the public to believe that resistance is futile, that the lawyers will fail, the courts will bend, the institutions will cave, and the local officials will panic. The media will normalize it, and by the time anyone reacts, the ground rules of the election will already have changed. That is the emotional goal, not just a legal victory, but psychological surrender. Don't give them that. Don't give these bastards your despair, because that is exactly what they feed on. The answer is speed. The answer is with clarity. The answer is a citizenry with a legal opposition willing to move the instant the trap is sprung. Challenge the order immediately. Challenge the local imitators immediately. Challenge the bureaucratic tributaries immediately. Challenge every petty official who thinks he can get to cosplay as a constitutional scholar because dear leader coughed up a memo. This fight is not only in Washington. It is in counties, it is in state courts, it's in local officials, it's in clerk records, the deadlines, the injunctions, and emergency hearings, and in every little corner where power tries to mutate faster than accountability can catch it. That is the battlefield, not just the speech, but the headline. It's not just a headline, it's the machinery. And that's why independent media matters, because the mainstream press, as usual, will be 10 minutes late and spiritually 15 years behind. They will discuss optics, the tone, the messaging, whether voters think that this is a distraction. They will treat an attempted power grab like, oh, it's just an interesting strategic gambit from a colorful of, controversial political figures. They will invite the same dead-eyed consultants on television to say, well, you know what, both sides are escalating tensions. No. One side is trying to bend the electoral system around the insecurities of a man who cannot accept limits. Say it like that. Record it before they sanitize it, because tomorrow they will tell you, that it was normal. Necessary, understandable, and maybe even responsible. They will dress it up in euphemism and legal sludge and patriotic vapor. They will try to make you feel foolish for having noticed what was obvious from the very beginning. Don't let them do that. This is about power. It always was about power. And if they can get away with attaching every foreign conflict, every emergency declaration, every security pretext to the personal political survival of the president, then you no longer have a constitutional republic in any meaningful sense. You have a presidency unmoored from law and fueled by grievance. You have a government that can manufacture crises in order to supervise consent. You have the beginning of something very dark. So no, this is not a moment for passivity. It is a moment for vigilance, for speed, for law, for courage, for public contempt toward anyone trying to launder this filth into legitimacy, and for public contempt toward anyone trying to launder this filth into legitimacy. They think you're stupid. They really do. They think that if they just wave towards Iran, China, interference, emergency, security, and the war in front of your face, you will also stop asking the very question that matters. Why does every road lead back to Donald Trump trying to keep power he's not entitled to keep? Why is every road leading back to the fact that Donald Trump is distracting us from the Epstein files with this war in Iran? That's the real question, isn't it? Now ask that question again. Ask it again. And don't shut up until the whole country hears it. If you want more of this, subscribe now. Stay with us. We are telling the truth while they are trying to bury it. And make no mistake, they would love to censor voices like this and take us off the air entirely. So join us now before they do. Tyler Carlin Tonight, Season 2, Episode 2. We'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening with the ones you love.